Thank you.
Hi, everybody. How are you all doing? Is everybody well? It's good to be. It's just good to be out doing one of these with the great Alan Cumming.
Thanks.
What could be
Thanks,
more
Chris.
fabulous? You know, just for the record, when Alan began this tour of books, this tour in support of this book, the person interviewing him in Scotland was Nicola Sturgeon, the first minister of Scotland. So he's now fallen to Chris Jones at the Music Box.
You're sort of the first minister of the theatre of Chicago.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's very kind. What was she like? I mean,
Well, the thing about her is that she's a big reader. She reads. Like, imagine a leader who reads. But she's really supportive of Scottish writers. So it was quite daunting. But she's a hoot. She's an absolute hoot. It was during COP26. I was there, and the first thing we talked about was this story about. It was a thing about a jockstrap. Anyway, it was a long story, but it was a sort of thing that was happening on British TV at the time because of my jockstrap and this thing I was doing with Miriam Margolyes and how she was obsessed with my jockstrap. Then she asked me to tell this story, and I finished it, and I said to her, "Well, Nicola, you don't get this at COP26, do you?" and she said, "Not now that Boris has gone back to London." So she's funny as well.
That's really good. In the book, you say that your favorite movie you ever did was Spice World. Is that really true? Is that just something you put in a book? Really? Spice World was your favorite movie?
It's not my favorite I said it for a reason. It is my favorite experience I had on a film. And I say it obviously to kind of be a little provocative and also to sort of stop kind of cultural artistic snobbery about things as well in their tracks. But I feel it's really important that the experience that you have, you should be in the now having the experience, because especially in films, there's so many other extenuating circumstances and things that happen between you and when it comes out. So to sort of think of your favourite film only to be the thing that happens at the end, the product at the end, I think is short-sighted, and it's a good sort of metaphor for life is to enjoy the actual now in the moment that you're doing it, because you never know what's going to happen. And so I did. I had the best summer. I was back in London. I was, running around with the Spice Girls at the height of before it all went sour and they went mad, when they were just these innocent girls just sucking lollipops and having fun. And I learned all the Spice Girls dance moves from the Spice Girls themselves. And I just had an absolute blast. I also said it's a bit like being in a zombie film, because because wherever we were in these sort of gated, base camps, because they were just, it was insane. Spice Mania at the height of it was insane.
I remember that.
And it was all sort of tweens, like 12-year-old girls. So instead of zombies, replace it with 12-year-old girls. Because they'd be climbing over walls and throwing themselves on the thing of your car as you left it. We all had these black cars with blacked out windows, so they never knew who it was leaving. So they just fling themselves as thud of a 11-year-old girl throwing herself at the car. So it was an absolute gas. And it was a really magical experience, actually. And I forgot about this. I even got a piercing because of the Spice Girls. I finished the movie and they're, Alan, Scary Spice, Alan, why don't you have no tattoos? Why don't you have no piercings? Why don't you have any? And I was like, I just don't. And anyway, so I went and got my eyebrow pierced, purely from peer pressure from the Spice Girls. So when I went back to the rap party, I was like, look, I did it. Such a brat. But I think it's really important. I say that because I really do think that often people, I hate snobbery of any kind, and especially artistic snobbery. And I actually think that's a really good film in terms of, for what it is. It's a sort of band caper in that genre. I think it's really good and fun and self-deprecating. But I actually just like to say that to kind of slightly put the cat among the pigeons as well.
So you've written two memoirs. Now, the list of people who've written two memoirs is short, and often it's because they've lived so long that the first memoir's kind of run out of juice, right? So they have to do another memoir because it's sort of volume 2, if you're like Winston Churchill or somebody like that, right? But your memoir, compared to the first memoir, is almost a different. The way I describe it, I guess, is it's almost a different philosophical orientation. So the first memoir is sort of saying, as they say in Kinky Boots, I'm not my father's son, and this is who I am, and it's other than what I came from. And in the second memoir, you're sort of arguing that there's no escape from where we come from, and it's always part of us, and it's all just about whatever we learn to do with it. So I'm not sure that I know of any other paired memoirs quite like that. And I'm curious how you got from one to the other.
Well, I didn't mean to write this book. It was sort of accidental, like most things in my life. But really, basically when Not My Father's Son came out, it was a big hit. And so they wanted me to do another book. And so I was like, I don't have anything to write about. And then what happened was the reaction to really why I've written this book is I've written it as a reaction to the reaction to Not My Father's Son. It's true, because I was amazed by the reaction. And that book, if you don't know, it's about it's about this summer I had. And the reason I wrote that book is I just couldn't stop talking about what happened to me. I was just obsessed with, in the space of 2 months. I found out that my grandfather died in Malaysia playing Russian roulette. Yeah. And he was also not the father of one of my uncles, and he was this big war hero we didn't know about. He was very damaged in India in the war. And then also my father told me I was not his biological son, all within the space of this 6 weeks, really. So it was overwhelming. I wrote that book as a kind of expunging of everything. I just couldn't stop talking about it. I'd get in a cab, and the cabbie would go, "How are you?" I go, "Well, my grandfather died in Malaysia playing Russian roulette." And so, so anyway, when it came out, I was really, and also because in order to explain why I hadn't seen, my dad, came out of the woodwork, hadn't seen him for 20 years. In order to explain that, I had to talk about my childhood, and that was very, abusive and violent, and that's what that was all about. So in a way, that part of it, talking about that, I was rewriting my own narrative, if you will, and it was a very scary thing to do. And also, I felt really worried for my mum and my brother about, dragging them into, revealing something that was essentially very, very shameful for us. Because I think abusers, good abusers, rely on their abusees being very ashamed of being abused, and so that you protect your abuser. And so, anyway, the reaction to the book was great, and a lot of people still to this day write to me and say that because I spoke out and that has inspired them to deal with things in their family, or to confront their abusers, or just to talk about things that were shameful and difficult for them. And that's been a really great byproduct of it. But the thing I didn't like was this sort of rhetoric that I had triumphed and I'd overcome my childhood, and I'd, sort of conquered it in some way. And I felt that I really wanted to say in this book that, as you say, that you don't win. There's nothing to be gained. There's no gains in that war. Basically, we all have trauma that we've had from our past, and it doesn't necessarily be as crazy as mine was, but we've all got baggage available in all good bookshops, and you just learn to manage them, and they're always with you, and you have to just not deny it. You mustn't pretend it's not there. You mustn't pretend you've overcome it. It's not something to be overcome. It's just to be managed and to live with you in the rest of your life. So that's why I wrote this book. It was more to kind of, in a way, I felt slightly guilty that maybe I had given, well, not me, but the reaction to my book had given too rosy and kind of, that sort of redemptive thing that everyone likes so much in America. This sort of, we like it all tied up. We love, someone coming back from terrible things. So that's why I wrote it. That's why.
I think, though, I'm about the same age as you, and I think most people don't arrive at what you just described very early in their lives. That you have to be a certain age to arrive at what you're talking about in this second book, maybe.
Yes. I think I think so. And I think I wanted to show that journey of I wanted to say, don't buy into the Hollywood ending. And then, of course, tell you loads of things about my Hollywood life. But also that, you learn. I mean, I think that life's like a series of patterns. I say that life is just like the same show with different costumes. That the same things keep happening, the same behavioral patterns, the same circumstances. And I guess wisdom is when you see those patterns repeating and you decide to make a different decision about one of them if it caused you pain in the past. And that's what I think I learned. And I learned a lot about a lot of stuff that I took into my adult life was because of my dad and because of what had happened to me. I tried to fix angry people. That was a thing I did for many years. And I realized I couldn't, it was when I realized I couldn't do that then I grew. And so this book is sort of me showing my mistakes that I made in order to kind of get to a place where, I am absolutely not fixed and not perfect and all that, but I feel I'm in a better, more balanced place and happy, and I think I feel I also wrote this book to try to normalize being a hot fucking mess sometimes. Because I think we all are sometimes.
I think sometimes when you look at very successful people, I was doing an interview once with Stephen Sondheim, and I'm just throwing that out there.
He's quite successful.
Just to remind everybody of that moment. But in that interview, he mentioned that his mother had written him a letter saying that her biggest regret was that he'd ever been born.
Yes.
And I remember the audience there was an intake of breath in the audience, as if nobody could believe how any parent could have that disregard for a child, but particularly Stephen Sondheim's parent. And, you look at you and you go, you've had an astonishingly successful career. It's hard to almost gel the one with the other, Or maybe one causes the other, I don't know.
I don't think that. I don't think one causes the other. Yeah. I don't buy into that sort of rhetoric of,
artist.
I was a tortured little boy, so I became an actor to find the love I never had from my dad. No. I think that there's lots of people who are really successful who had very happy childhoods. So I also don't, in some way that to me kind of smacks of not justifying what happened, but it's sort of, I don't know, I don't like it anyway. But no, I feel that, it's funny, this thing I was talking about, the jockstrap thing earlier, it's a show that's on in Britain right now called Miriam and Alan Lost in Scotland, a travel show where I go around Scotland in a van with Miriam Margolyes, the actress, as mental as you might imagine. But the first episode was last week, and we went to the house that I grew up in. We went back to that house, and I went around, and I couldn't go inside it. I couldn't. It was too much for me to go. I could go in if I wanted, but I said I can't because so many sort of traumatic things had happened there. And we just sat outside and we talked, and Miriam got very upset about it, and she said just the fact that and for me what I find is the person who is supposed to protect you, is supposed to look after you and care for you, was the person who was being so violent to me and abusive to me, and that is still something that's very, very difficult. Still, I've talked a lot about it. I've had a lot of therapy, and it's still really hard to understand or to just think. I still think why was what? I mean, I kind of know some of the reasons. It's not my fault. I know that, but it's still really. I'm never going to get over that, and that's what I mean about this book. I think you've got that. I'm always going to have that trouble, and I'm triggered by. There's certain things that and I talk about them in the book as well. Some situations I've been in later in my life that I'm really triggered by, sort of angry men, and it's not. That's never going to go away. I just have to realize that.
What was I think people think of Scotland as a bucolic, that you grew up in some kirk or cairn or some, or some kind of, in the heather, frolicking in the heather at 8 years old. Was it like that?
It actually was, yeah. It's so, I mean, seriously, it's funny going back there in this TV show. It's all different now. I grew up on a country estate. My dad was a forester. It was all very, this was much more sort of a bit more Downton Abbey. Now it's a bit more sort of, the houses have been built on it, and it's not a sawmill yard anymore, all this stuff. But anyway, but yeah, I grew up in this stunningly beautiful rural area that is, to me was like hell, and I could not wait to get away from it. And it's interesting that in my real life now, I have a place. It's 20 years since I have owned this place in the Catskills in upstate New York, and it's very, very similar terrain to where I grew up. It's like my brother came for the first time and he said, "I bought my childhood." And it's sort of like it's funny. I love so much about where I grew up. But at the time, of course, I didn't love it. And years later, I've come back to it, and I love being in the forest. I love just being in the middle of nowhere, and I understand things about the way things grow, and by osmosis, I've learned these things, and it's nice to be able to enjoy all that in my own terms without this sort of scary dad looming. Yeah. That it's funny how you go back to your roots, and also Scotland is featuring much more heavily in my sort of periphery as well. I have a place there too, but I feel more like I'm going to end up there. I feel like I'm being drawn back, especially well, before like September of last year, I had the big plans to leave, but if things hadn't gone the way they'd gone. But I still think it's. I just think as you get older, you get more. It's the sort of 7 ages of man. Shakespeare, he's got it. He nailed it.
And art has imitated your life. I mean, there's a place in the book where you talk about your marriage breaking up while playing Hamlet. Like you're in Hamlet and your marriage is falling apart.
And my wife was playing Ophelia in Hamlet.
I mean,
I know. It was pretty.
I'm sort of speechless. I don't even know what I would ask about that.
I know.
Sort of
and I feel. In a way, I feel like, that's probably why my Hamlet was so sensational. I was such a hot fucking mess when I was doing it. It's actually that's when I learned the word lachrymose. Was in all the reviews said I was a very lachrymose Hamlet. I was like, what does that mean? It means like you cry all the fucking time. And I just cried for like a year when I was doing that. Yeah, because I was having really, that when I did Hamlet, I think I'm fascinated. I write about memory and about the function of memory and what it does and how it changes and I'm obsessed with the idea that you can have all this stuff in your mind, but you don't know it's there until someone else kind of activates it and brings it out. And I'm also fascinated by the way your mind protects you. By making you, like, I wasn't till right after I did Hamlet, actually. During the time I was doing Hamlet, I started to remember all these things from my childhood that my mind had stored away somewhere from me. And because I was too little to process them and deal with them. So I suddenly had this thing with all these memories coming back into my consciousness it's kind of an incredible thing that your body does that, your mind, your brain does that to protect you. And then whilst I was doing this Hamlet, I was also my wife and I were at the time trying to have a child. So I think that's what activated me having to, thinking about fatherhood and my father, and that's when all these things came back, and it was like this, it was incredible. It was like this weird LSD trip of horror about all these memories that I knew were true, but I had suppressed. So yeah, so that made my Hamlet really good. But and then I also immediately played. I finished Hamlet on a Saturday night in London at the Donmar Warehouse, and on the Thursday after that, I opened in the same theatre the MC in Cabaret. So I was rehearsing it. So I mean, I wouldn't recommend, unless you want to have a nervous breakdown, I wouldn't recommend doing Hamlet and the MC back to back, because they're both quite mind-fucky.
So that...
I'm dying to see how she'll spell that. Speaking
of cabaret, so... They're catching up. So that production on Broadway with Natasha Richardson, which is 1998, I think. That was, I've seen a show or two in my life, and I'll never forget that show. I mean, it was a seminal production. In essence, what it did was it treated the title number like, she was at the lowest point possible, and she threw the microphone over and completely inverted all that cabaret had meant to everybody. And your character, there was a big deal then, and that must have been a rush because it was before a lot of the other things that have made you quite famous now. Was that that must have been a huge turning point for you, that production?
Yes, it was. It was massive, and I think it's also. I mean, for me, it was just crazy. I'd never worked in New York before. I mean, I'm kind of one of these really annoying people that the first time I worked in New York was to star in a Broadway musical. The first job I had in London was a play in the West End. The first job I had in America was being in a lead in a Hollywood movie. I've never been a caterer or a waiter or a bartender. I practically had to buy a bar so I could become a bartender because I really like it. I'm really annoying in that way, and so, but I feel I've fallen into all these things without really knowing. This thing happened to me in New York, and I was just like, what? I really had I was doing a film in the Czech Republic right before it, and I remember a friend of mine said, "Oh, what are you doing next, Alan?" I said, "Oh, well, this play I did in London a few years ago is going on in New York, so I'm going over to do that." And I thought that's what it was. And then I arrived, and I was going from the airport to where I was living. And I saw a huge billboard that said, Natasha Richardson, Alan Cumming, cabaret. I was like, what? And so I just felt the whole thing was like that. I was just like, I didn't understand.
And you were like 32, 30, you were...
I was 33.
33.
And I just was like I had no idea of the whole sort of Broadway, or American, sort of mores and etiquette and stuff that happened. And of course, I'd know nothing to compare it to. So I was just, this crazy thing happened to me. I was like the toast of Broadway, and all these people were coming, and I was like, does this always happen to people when they come? And it also kind of, entered the zeitgeist in a way that was really fascinating. And I have a chunk in the book where I tried to make sense of why this happened to me. I was 33, like you say, I was no spring chicken, but suddenly there I was in this role, and it was like a sort of confluence of things. I was feeling very confident and on my game and happy and sort of sexy, and I felt confident about what the role needed and all that stuff. But also, I think at that time in America, it was the time of the the Clinton impeachment scandal, and so every night Americans were seeing in the news this sort of the sexuality, sex, and sort of enjoyment of that being kind of derided and having scorn poured on it and judged and shame heaped upon sexuality. And at that time, right in that time, there was me being this sort of sexual sprite, having no shame and being this kind of antithesis to all that. And I think in a way, what was happening in America at the time really helped make our show so sort of sensational.
But you were aware, there was a darkness to your performance. There was a cruelty at times, there was a cynicism, there was a coldness, a sharpness, all of the stuff that you've used since then in movies.
Yes, because I think, that's what's great about that. Well, it's such a good show, Cabaret. I mean, and that role is really sort of like a Pied Piper, taking the audience through this story, and so therefore he sort of tricks the audience as well. He's sort of a trickster, and so that he's cruel. And in a funny way, that's why I feel I did it for so long. I never have done long runs in other things, but I feel that with Cabaret, because every night was a different play, because the audience was the character that I interacted with most. So it changed every night. So I had a really, it was always fresh to me, and I think that he sort of. I mean, that's what I think is fascinating about the fact that there's only really been two sort of, iconic interpretations of it, which I feel is tragic. Joel Grey and me, and now, you know, little Eddie Redmayne's doing it in London. So I mean, I think there's what saddens me is that I constantly get people all over the world saying, "Hey, I'm doing Cabaret, Alan, and you know, I'm playing the MC, and can you offer me any tips?" And they send me a picture of themselves, and they look exactly like I did in 1998. The straps and the thing with your harness with your junk and the nipples. And I just think, oh, come on, I feel like this could be anything. This role could be anything. It's not even, it has no characteristics other than the ones that you put on it yourself. And I feel it's sad that it's been sort of just two people have kind of ruled the roost with it. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's a sort of a cipher. It's not really a proper character. And with the right director, you can make it, you can really manipulate and make the audience have a much more intense experience watching the whole show if you guide them properly.
Then you got a character on The Good Wife, on the I'm blanking on your TV show. The
Good Wife.
The Good Wife.
Yeah, don't worry.
Senior moment on The Good Wife, based on Chicago's own Rahm Emanuel.
I know.
Allegedly. Fictionalized.
No, it was based on him. I mean, yeah. They sort of told me, it was so funny actually, I remember this so vividly. I didn't want to do The Good Wife. I didn't understand it. I'd said I wanted to do a TV series in New York. I wanted to not be traveling so much and all this stuff. And then you know, when you get asked to be, I got asked to do one episode of it, and I was like, pfft. And you have to decide really quickly because they cast all these things at the last minute. And I'd seen Juliana on a bus stop, and so I knew that's what I knew of The Good Wife. And then I read it, and I was like, you know, when you flick through something, you think, oh, I can't make sense of this. What the fuck? And also, I remember saying, why are they asking me to do this? Because I'd never really played real people. I played lots of fantastical people. I never played, you know, most of the characters I played weren't human often, you know. And
it's
I was
like Black Beauty, right?
Yes, right. Yes. I said, why are they asking me? I remember I said, he's a middle-aged guy in a suit. Why would they ask me? And I thought, oh wait, I'm a middle-aged guy. So if I wear a suit, so it was a big turning point for me in terms of my sort of growing up as an actor. I thought, oh yeah, I can be a guy in a suit. But I remember, like, I was sort of, all right, I'll do this episode. And I remember they wanted to talk to me, the Kings, the amazing people who made it, you know, created it. And I had my headphones on, and I was in the supermarket shopping, and they were sort of talking to me about the character, and I was like, oh really, yes, based on Rahm Emanuel, yes, okay, 150 calories. I was like shopping like that, not really paying much attention. And I was like, oh, and he plays the piano, oh, and he's a lot. So it was one of these things that I just fell into. And again, you know, like many of the things in my life, I said yes to it. I was open to it, and I didn't really want to do it, but I thought, oh, I'll give it a go, you know. And that was a huge thing. That changed my life in a way as well.
How have you know, a lot of people in the pandemic have gotten very introverted. Like, it's a drag to come, you know, it's hard to come out and it's hard to restart life. And you're sort of known as a famously social guy. Like, you had this famous bar setup when you're in a show, to the point where I think you even got a liquor company to sponsor your dressing room.
Yes, full bar in my dressing room for a year.
And then
Thanks, Campari America.
And then you've got a bar, Club Cumming, that people go to, that theater people go to in New York. How do you keep wanting to be social? Like, a lot of celebrities really don't like being that social. How do you maintain that interest and curiosity?
Well, I mean, I have boundaries. I mean, I loved the pandemic. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but
a lot of people did.
Yeah, aside from the hundreds of thousands of people dying and the fear and we're all going to die.
I know what you mean.
But the actual, you know, the experience of having all that time out of my life, and I spent most of it in the Catskills, I loved it. And it's a really salutary lesson to realize that all the things you thought were essential to your happiness and well-being and day-to-day life, you don't really need those. Actually, you're fine without them. All the stuff and so when I went back, I'm doing a book tour. I've just done a movie. I was, I did some concerts. It went immediately back to sort of full pre-pandemic pelt. I was horrified. I'm just like, oh my God, I want to go back to the country. And I think it's really interesting. I learned so much about myself. And I appreciate the things that I do in a different way, but I don't feel, I look at them as things that are options now rather than necessities, if you see what I mean. Yeah. Lots of things about my life and my career. But in terms of being sociable, I didn't miss it. I mean, I didn't have, I think it's, you can't have FOMO about stuff that isn't actually happening. Do you see what I mean? So I didn't feel, I get that. I guess if I was upstate for months and everybody's having parties and I wasn't able to go, I'd be furious. But the fact there weren't any parties and Club Cumming was, kind of just we had one of those little sheds. Those, they have them here in Chicago. They build little things to sort of, you can eat outside, of course. Yeah. Ours is laughingly called at Club Cumming, the Club Cumming Cabana. And it's like more like a thing that Jesus would have been born in. You know what I mean? But it's all, it's great. I was there the other night. It was all up and running again, and it's such fun. But I've always been, I am really sociable, but Club Cumming is a good case in point. I go behind the bar, and I do genuinely love being a bartender. But it means I've also got some separation between me and people. That's why I love DJing as well. I love making people dance and have fun, but also there's a separation between you. I'm part of the party, but I'm not, it's not overwhelming that people want to come and sort of talk to you and everything. So I think I forged a way in my life to have the fun that I want to have and to be as open and to have connection with people as much as I want to, but also within the constraints of being like well-known and everything like that.
The thing that I don't envy about celebrity is always that it must be hard to make, like, a lot of celebrities don't make a lot of eye contact because they have so many interactions that they feel that they have to limit them a little bit at least. And sometimes the interactions they get are not always the ones I would imagine that you would want. Does that make sense? So I always think, I can't imagine what it's like managing that on a daily basis,
I always say to people that, it's funny because I just go about my life. I know it's weird. I know this crazy. Like, look at this. This is not normal. I'm here on a thing talking about my life, and there's hundreds of people looking at me. That's bizarre. But the biggest, it's funny if a friend of mine comes who's not, from maybe from Scotland or from Britain,
from the old days, right?
From the old days, comes and or a new person in my life, and they will go around. I do something normal, go down the street or go somewhere, and they say to me, "Is it always like this?" Like, because of the people coming up and just the way that you just have to, things happen, and that's when I realized, oh yes, it is weird. And what I say to people is that the thing is that you live with such a huge level of self-consciousness at all times that the moment I go out of my house, even when I open the door of my house, I'm aware that someone's walking past. They go, "Hey," like that, and you're like, "Oh, good morning." Yes, and that immediately when you go out into the world, you have to just expect and assume that people are going to be...
It's a special moment for the person and an everyday moment for you, right? I mean, that's the disconnect, I suppose.
Yes, and you have to find, like this whole thing with your baggage and your trauma, you have to find a way to make that work for you. And for me, it's moving forward. And I'm always nice, hopefully, and I'm always kind, and I'm, hello, yes, hi, yeah. But it's just like, imagine when you're just having a bad day and you just have got up and you're, it's when people ask for photos when I'm like picking up my dog's poop or something like that. I think, now you're really pushing it. But the thing, it was funny going back to the thing with Miriam Margulies on Channel 4, that we have very different ways of dealing with the public. Mine is sort of like, hello, yes, I'm moving forward, I'm moving. And that's what I say to people when they're
That's
with
the
me.
Paul McCartney method.
Is
I'm
it?
moving, yes, I'm moving. I'm
gotta
moving.
keep moving. Like, and when I've got friends and they're with me at a thing, and someone will say, Alan, and they'll kind of stop. And I go, don't stop. Always keep forward motion. Wave, like, hello, thanks so much. And it's nice, and everyone feels like they got a moment with you, but you're not. But you keep going. Otherwise, you kind of, And I feel that's what I'm doing in my life. I'm always moving forward, and it's nice because everyone feels like, oh, hello, like that. But Miriam does this thing where she goes, and she was Mrs. Professor Sprout in Harry Potter, right? So all these kids are just gaga when they see her. And so I'm like, moving forward, and she's like, would you like a photograph? And I'm like, oh, Miriam. And then of course these kids go, yes, and they'll come for a photograph. Goes, not too close, COVID, like that. So she says this push and pull thing. And there must be all these photographs of us, me, like push, and sometimes she's in a little chair, I've got to push her. And I'm like this, like, oh, for fuck's sake, why are we doing this? She's like this, beaming, and there's two little kids standing quite far away from us, like. And the one time, the director of the thing, or the producer of the show, was taking the picture, and he said to the kids, "Don't be scared." I'm like, they weren't scared. Why are you saying that? Don't say that to a child.
Well, we're going to take a couple of questions. I've got one last one. So, the pandemic, the great realignment, we've all quit our jobs, decided to change our lives, decided to reprioritize, right? I mean, to some degree? Yeah. What are you going to do now? What do you want to do? What's on the docket now? It's sort of funny, I've just kind of gone back, I've just made a little film with Katie Holmes. I really liked. I played this antique shop owner. I'm moving into that bracket. It's good casting.
The older, kinder gay man who runs an antique shop and cries a lot about his dead partner when he gets drunk.
That's great. The MC.
Yes, that's
the MC to the antique shop.
But I really liked it. I haven't been mean, but it was hilarious. And then I'm going to on Tuesday. I'm going to Barcelona to make a film with Neil Jordan and Liam Neeson. This sort of Philip Marlowe. It's a Philip Marlowe film. That detective guy. Liam's playing that, and I'm playing I'm playing a southern gangster. I know, hilarious. So I'm enjoying doing back to sort of little project, one here and then that one there and that one there, and then next year there's a few things, but the biggest thing next year, well, looks like we're going to do, top secret, don't tell anyone, another series of Schmigadoon, the Scapel show. Yeah.
Isn't there a Robert Burns thing in there too? So when you're thinking about doing something about Robert?
That was the big thing, Chris. Yes. So I'm going to do a solo dance piece about I don't know quite what yet, about Robert Burns, the Scottish poet. And so I'm going to be 57 and making my dance career debut. Showbiz. It's so crazy. Because 2 weeks ago when I was doing the thing with Nicola in Scotland, the First Minister, right before it, I shot the poster for this. It's called Burn, is the name of the show. You do these things, you do a poster before you have any idea what the fuck the show is about. But it was I thought, when I was doing that, I thought, oh, shit got real. So I just didn't drink for 2 weeks, and I've been trying to lose weight and sort of stretching every day and doing all these things that I should have been doing for years. But I'm going to do. I was opening the Edinburgh Festival, doing a tour, then coming to the Joyce Theatre, the home of contemporary dance in New York City. And I just love that most dancers, careers end 30 years before mine begins. It's so nuts, but I just think that's another example. I'm keeping myself open to possibility, and it's crazy that this should be happening, but it's why not? It's just sort of a fun, I want to, and I just think I want to challenge myself. And it's all really because when I did Cabaret the last time, about 5 years ago, I did it again, and it finished, and I turned 50 when I was doing it. And I remember thinking, oh, fuck, this is it. I'm never going to be this fit again. No one's ever going to ask me to do this, to dance like this again. This is it. It's a slow slide towards death right now. And then I thought, I've still got one thing in me, a dance thing. And so bizarrely, I thought maybe a play with dancing or a musical, and all of a sudden I'm doing a solo dance piece.
Yeah, why not?
Showbiz.
All right. Let's take a couple of questions.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. We've got 2 microphones will circulate. Please raise your hands if you have a question. I'm sure there are plenty, and we will come to you. Let's start with you over there.
All right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the new radio show you're doing, Cinnamon Bear?
Oh, yes. She's asking about, it's an Audible thing. You may have heard of them. An Audible show. It's called Cinnamon Bear. And it's a 20-episode, count them, 20 episodes. It goes from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and it's a thing for kids. It's like an old, actually the lady who heard, it's an old radio show that's now being revived and sort of revamped. My friend Eric Gilliand wrote it, this new version, but a lady wrote me on Instagram the other day who, her dad actually wrote the real thing I'm not quite sure when it was, a long, long time ago. And so it's a sort of a revamp of that. I play the titular Cinnamon Bear. And it's got a crazy cast, like Ryan Reynolds as Santa Claus and Helen Hunt and blah, blah. I mean, it's just nuts, all these different people. But it's sort of a fun thing. And they do one a day. They drop one a day from between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it's a thing for kids to sort of get kids back into that. Ooh, I wonder what's going to, instead of everything. But I mean, I think it's interesting, the whole thing of binging. I think we've kind of, like with Zoom, we've fallen out of love with Zoom a little. And I think we've fallen out of love with binging. I think we quite enjoy now the anticipation of waiting for the next thing and being able to talk about it. And also the thing of everyone having the same experience at the same time, because that's what COVID was. We all had, the entire world had the same experience at the same time. Yeah. And I think there's something good about that. But so Cinnamon Bear is coming your way, kids. Available on Audible.
Starts next week.
It starts next week. It must do. Yes.
All right.
We have a question over here. Yeah.
Nope.
You were famously attached to Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark at one point. I was wondering if you saw the show, if you had any recollections from that time.
I wasn't going to go there.
Is that you there? I did not see the show. So I went, yes, I was attached. So there's this Spider-Man show that was on Broadway, like this huge sort of, hugely problematic, I think.
You might
say.
Yeah.
I was attached to it for a bit. I was attached to it to play the Green Goblin, and one of the reasons why I was excited to do it was because he was only in the first half, and then they rewrote it, and he was in the whole thing. I was like, fuck. But I liked it. I thought it'd be fun. I loved the costume designer. She was amazing, and she's a Japanese lady. She's since died. Not because of Spider-Man, just coincidentally she died. And, Bono and The Edge wrote the music, so I went into the studio and worked with them a wee bit, became attached to it. Then all of a sudden, actually, when I was in a fitting with that Japanese lady, they're like, oh, sorry, Alan, just FYI, we're postponing for 9 months. I was like, what? And so hilariously, they gave me they gave me a thing to stay on, a holding fee or something. I can't remember what you call it, but I think they gave me some money every week. I was paid every week to stay with the production, and at the time I was like the official spokesman for it, because when I would be promoting other things, they would always ask me about it, and I would sort of think, well, I'm earning that fucking money by talking about it, and saying, yes, it's absolutely going to happen, just a few problems with the backers, la la la. And then it was because of The Good Wife. Because I'd done The Good Wife in this. Every time I got another job, I had to tell them I had to get approval from Spider-Man. Can you imagine? That's my life. And then I did The Good. Then when The Good Wife asked me to come on and stay on as a regular person, series regular, I had to ask the thing, and it was now about to get, and they were negotiating about how I would be able to do both at once. Like I would do, I mean, like what? So that I would do 8 shows a week as the Green Goblin in Spider-Man, also film The Good Wife, and they would say on Fridays that I would do the show. There was something like I would do the first act, because then it was when I was still only in the first act. Then go, take all my makeup off and go back to the set of The Good Wife. And I'm like, he's green. I'm covered in green stuff. That's, because when I did The Good Wife during Cabaret, I always had eyeliner on the next day. Eli suddenly was wearing eyeliner for no reason. I don't know. Nobody noticed. But it was just awful. And finally, they said, you have to choose one or the other. And I said, it was so problematic by that point and such a hot mess. And I said, I'm going to choose The Good Wife. So I had to make a press statement. And you know that, well, I don't know if you
remember all this. Yeah.
But like when you Google yourself, if there's something coming out, and it's like, one of the things they do a statement, and it's the same statement in all the different newspapers. So there's literally pages and pages and pages of the same headline. And for me, it said, Alan Cumming pulls out of Spider-Man. And Alan Cumming withdraws from Spider-Man. And I was like, that's right, bitches. I just thought it was hilarious. But it was, I really feel I dodged a bullet big time.
You
but
did.
there's a lot more of stuff of that. Maybe I'll write about that in my next memoir. But there was a lot of shit went down with that.
We got one more question?
Oh, gosh.
We have a question here in House Left.
So I told people that I was going to come see you, and everyone was like, Alan Cumming. And then they looked at your picture. Ooh, sorry. That was loud. I was telling people I was coming to see you, and I showed them your picture, and they were like, oh, yes, I know him. They were so excited. You're an amazing actor, and you do a lot of kids stuff. Do you have one that you really enjoy more than others? Because there's this
kids. So
sorry. You do just a range. You do this range from kid stuff to adult stuff. So I was just curious about the kid stuff.
I feel like I'm eclectic, and I think eclecticism breeds eclecticism. I'm asked to do all these kind of crazy things, and I do love it. I love doing kids things. I did. Like the Cinnamon Bear thing that you're asking about is an example of that. And I've also been in things like, I was on Sesame Street, which was like a huge honor. Incredible. I sang a song and everything. And I've been on Dora the Explorer. I was in an episode of Dora the Explorer it was me, Jewel, and Mel Brooks. Together at last. And I was in Arthur. I was in Arthur the Aardvark. I was in Arthur. I was nominated for an Emmy for my performance in Arthur. All these things. I love them. I really love them. And there's actually a really good thing on Apple Plus called a new Muppet thing called The Helpsters. I did that too. That was great. And anyway, I love doing those things. And actually, I've done a long time ago. It was a spell where I just happened to do like a lot of films like Spy Kids, thank you, Annie. No, I'm not fishing, but a lot of these sort of kidsy sort of things. I did a lot of films in over a few years, and in terms of what's so lovely is that because of Spy Kids and then the sequels and everything, and those other films around that time, that young adults, people who are in their mid-20s who saw it when they were kids. It's it's probably 20 years ago now, maybe more, Yeah. The great thing about Spy Kids is that kids still watch it. It hasn't really sort of aged out. Mm-hmm. And that's really a magical thing, because I remember exactly the moment when a young adult came towards me, instead of being like, hey, my girlfriend says you're famous, blah, blah, like that, came to me like, because I was this magical character from their childhood, and Mr. Floop was this magical person in their childhood. And it's really an amazing thing to have that connection with a whole slew of, a whole generation. And when I was in, a couple of years ago, I shot this thing, I can never remember the name of it, with Rosario Dawson, called, anyway, it doesn't matter, in Albuquerque. And at the end of it, often at the end of films, there's sometimes new crew on the set because the crew have moved on to another thing. So there's bizarrely new people at the end of something. And this was the case in this. There was this new camera assistant, this young guy. So I walked onto the set one day. It was a scene when we're like, a big shootout and I was going to die and blah, blah. And we all walked on and we're all rehearsing. And I saw him and he went, and I was like, oh, Spy Kids. I just knew it. But it was obviously inappropriate for him to geek out in that moment because I'm, about to die in this thing. And anyway, and he was new and didn't know the score. Anyway, so one time I was coming back from my trailer and he was coming back from the camera truck with something. And so he came beside me, we were walking back to the set, and he went, oh, Alan, I've been trying to find a moment to say to you. And I was like, uh-huh. And he went, you touched me a lot when I was a little boy. I said, never say that again, but thank you. But it really does mean a lot to me. And it is a magical thing to have a connection with a whole generation of young people, young adults, people maybe 20, 30 years younger than me, who I've been like sort of Willy Wonka in their lives or something, do you know? And I think it's great, actually. It's really lovely.
It's interesting. In the book, you talk about when you first went to London, you had to repress your Scottish accent to some degree, and now here you are, a sort of voiceover and all your voice is such a part of you. It's ironic, really.
Yes, I mean, I didn't repress my voice when I first went to London. It was strongly suggested that I should. Mm-hmm. There's a whole, I write about it in the book at length, about the sort of thing about Scottishness being seen as kind of slightly a problem to be, if you want to be successful as an actor, or to be just Scottishness as being slightly less than within the British Isles and within, especially in the south of England. And that's not just exclusively for Scotland. That's Irish people. I mean, Northern people. It's definitely a thing. The south of England has a very sort of low tolerance for the other. Let's leave it at that. And so in a way, I have found my voice, both literally and metaphorically, actually, both as a performer and as a person and as a writer as well. So it's fascinating to look back at your life and to sort of see that and just kind of feel that it's validating in a way that I didn't think it would be.
Alan Cumming, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks so much, everybody.